Today in our 2016 Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk, we'll be installing the Roadmaster EZ4 baseplate kit with removable arms, part number RM-521446-4. Alright, here's what our baseplate looks like once it's been installed. As you can see, it's nice and tucked up behind our bumper cover of our vehicle. Very little sticks out, so we don't have to worry about running into it with our knees or our legs while we're walking in front of our vehicle. So this is what it looks like when you're not towing your vehicle behind your motorhome or your RV. When you want to hook it up, you can take the removable arms, slide them in at a horizontal angle, twist it until the pin locks it into place. It's the same on the other side of the vehicle. And then your tow bar will attach here. Once you're hooked up to your RV, this base plate will allow you to flat tow your vehicle with all four wheels on the ground without having the added expense of having to purchase a trailer. Now once we've arrived at our destination and we've unhooked from the RV, if we want to make our vehicle clean and have a nice look while we're driving down the road, you just pull the pin out, twist it 90 degrees, and pull straight out. All right, here's what our base plate kit consists of. As you can see, we have two brackets where our removable arms will attach to. We have a couple support brackets here, all of our necessary installation hardware, and we have two replacement plastic rivets because the ones that we need to remove in order to install our base plate have to be drilled out. So you don't have to go to the hardware store or the dealership in order to get new rivets. Now the first part of our installation, once we have our hood open, is to remove this cover here that goes over our core support. There's plastic fasteners surrounding it. Pop these out. Get in there with a flathead screwdriver or a trim panel tool. Pull out the center section and then the main section behind it. So once we have all 12 of our clips removed, we can just lift our panel off and set it aside. Now on each side of our fascia, there's three 10mm bolts that hold it on. One here, one here. This is the third bolt in the three that we need to remove. So we'll go in there with an extension. Or move it. And we'll do the same on the other side. Okay, now that we have all of our hardware out that holds our fascia to the core support on the top, we're on our driver's side wheel well. We have three 8mm bolts that hold the fascia down here. It's the same on the other side. We'll go ahead and remove all these. Okay, now that we have these three out on the driver's side, we'll repeat the same process for the passenger side. All right, now our front skid plate here, we need to remove this. There are 7 13mm bolts, 3 in the front, 4 in the back. Take these off. All right, with our front skid plate now removed, we can remove the 4 bolts that hold our fascia to the bottom of the vehicle. The reason we had to remove the skid plate is because the skid plate slightly covered up some of the washers on these bolts. Now at each side of our fascia, on the corner here underneath, we have a plastic rivet. This is the plastic rivet we have to drill out that we'll replace later with one of the new ones that comes in our kit. We'll use a 1/4-inch drill bit, get it centered right there in the middle, and we'll drill it out. Okay, once you're all the way through, you can repeat the same process for the other one. Okay, we're back on our driver's side and our wheel well. We'll take off our fender liner here, just peel it back a little bit. We have access to our 10mm bolt that holds our fascia to the fender. You may need an extension with a wobble socket on it in order to get in there easily. We'll do the same on the other side. Okay, now that we have all of our bolts that hold our fascia to the fender removed, we're back on our driver's side. There's this purple connector right here we need to remove this by unplugging it. Just push it on the tab. It's in the middle right here. Make sure the car's off before you do this. Otherwise the check engine light could come on. Okay, with our connector unplugged on our driver's side now, it's time for us to remove the fascia. Grab right here at the edge of it and pull out towards us. We'll do the same on the other side real quick. We'll work it out. Just keep pulling on it. Now before we get our fascia all the way off, there's one more 10mm bolt on both sides. That'll loosen up our bracket all the way that our bumper cover is mounted to. With those out, we can grab our bumper cover, slide it on out, and set it aside so it won't get damaged. All right, now that we got our fascia off, we can remove this bracket here. There's one 10mm nut and three 15mm bolts. We'll set these brackets aside. We will not be reinstalling them, but we'll keep them in case we ever need to put the vehicle back to stock. We'll do the same on the other side. Now with those plates removed, the stud that our 10mm nut was on, we need to cut this off to remove it. Now on our driver's side, we want to be careful when we're cutting that we don't nick our washer fluid reservoir and cause it to leak. Now this alignment tab right here, we can hit it with a hammer and bend it flat into this recess part. Okay, with it tucked in there, we'll repeat the same process on the other side. Now even though we're going to be covering this area up with our base plate, it's a good idea to take some spray paint and just cover up the bare metal so it won't rust. We'll do the same on the other side. Okay, now on our tow hooks, there's two 16mm bolts. We'll remove those. Now on the back side of our tow hook, we have this large nut right here. You can use a 30mm socket or a wrench or 1 1/4 inch. It's about the same size as that, it'll work. But I found out ours is only finger tight, so you don't really even need any tools to remove it. You just spin it off. Yours may vary because they do have Loctite on them. Well, now we have the nut removed from the back side, we can just grab the tow hook, pull it on out. We actually do need to use the wrench on this side to break it loose. You only need to get a couple turns, it feels like, and then you can get it off by hand. All right, now we'll take one of our long bolts that comes in our base plate kit, put on one of the lock washers, and then a flat washer. And we'll coat it with some red Loctite. We have Loctite available for purchase on our website if you need some. All right, that's good right there. Now we'll take our spacer plate here. We'll go through the middle hole in it right here, and we'll bolt it right through our bumper support right there. We'll just loosely put this on for the time being. We'll do the same on the other side. Now we'll take two of our shorter bolts that come in our kit. Since we left our plate kind of loose, we can just slide it out. We'll drop them down from the top, put it back in place, do the same on the other side. All right, now we'll align our plate here, the outside mount hole, with the hole on the bottom where our tow hook went, and we'll tighten it up. Repeat the same process on the other side. Now we'll take another one of our long bolts, lock washer, flat washer, put some Loctite on it. We'll grab our driver's side base plate bracket. Slide the two holes to the bolts that we dropped down. And we'll go through here. and loosely bolt it up. Okay, now we'll take 2 1/2-inch nuts and 1/2-inch lock washers. Put a dab of Loctite inside the nut. Place the lock washer onto the bolt that we dropped down and thread the nut on. Do the same on both of those bolts. Now the 3 15mm bolts that we removed on each side that had the aluminum bracket on here, we'll reinstall these. Put a dab of red Loctite on these two just for a good measure. Slide our bracket on up and install the bolts. Okay, now that we have all of those in place, we'll repeat the same process on the other side. Okay, now that we have both of our base plates loosely installed, we'll take the quick disconnect arms, push them in, rotate them to lock in place. We'll do this on both sides because we need these in place to get a quick measurement to make sure that our base plate arms are centered up. Okay, both of our arms installed. Take a tape measure. Measure from the center section between the holes in them. Make sure from center to center we're at 28.5 inches just to verify everything was installed correctly. And we are. So with that done, we can tighten down our bolts now. Let's do this one here first. 17mm. Then we'll switch off to our 15mm. Okay, now we'll tighten down these two. Use a 3/4 inch socket from underneath. Okay, we'll repeat the same process on the other side. Now that we have all of our hardware tightened down, we can torque it to the amount specified in the instructions. Okay, with all the bolts torqued down on this side, we'll repeat the same process on the other side. Okay, now that we have our base plates fully torqued down, we need to do a little bit of trimming on our fascia so it'll be able to slide over the base plate itself easily. So I marked off with a paint marker here. So we have the side here by the grill opening and over here by the fog light. We'll have to do some cutting behind too, but we'll do the stuff in the front first. Now that we got our driver's side trimmed up, we'll go ahead and go over to the passenger side and trim it up too. Now, if you use a paint marker to mark off your cuts on it, you can just use some rubbing alcohol to wipe off the residue. Once we have our passenger side done, we'll flip it over and do the back side. All right, now we get our front of our fascia cut. We're on the back side of it now. We marked off a couple more areas that we need to trim. We need to continue on the cut here and cut off this tab. We'll start with the tab first. Okay, so we have a second set of hands now that our fascia is cut. We'll raise our bumper cover back up into position. Okay, we'll push it in, clip it back in on its fender, push it in place. Okay, with our bumper cover snapped back in place, we'll reinstall our hardware that holds it to the vehicle. We have 3 bolts on each side. Okay, we'll repeat the same process for the other side. Okay, we'll reinstall our fascia cowl cover here. Drop it down in place, and we'll reinstall the 12 plastic push pins that hold it in. Okay, now we'll replug back in our front lights. on that electrical connector. Just push it in until it stops, pull back and make sure it's secure. Then we'll reinstall our 10mm bolt that holds our bumper cover to the fender. Okay, with that bolt reinstalled, we'll take our fender liner here and tuck it back in position. Reinstall our 3 8mm bolts that hold our fender liner to our fascia. And we'll repeat the same process on the other side. Now we'll reinstall our 4 10mm bolts that hold our fascia to the bottom of our radiator support. Okay, now we can reinstall the bolts that hold our skid plate on. Now our skid plate, you can actually loosely install these front bolts here first before you even put it up in position. And you can use these bolts to help hang it off because the skid plate's slotted. That way you don't have to support all the weight while you put the rear ones in. So you just slide it in the slots, hold it up, and reinstall your 4 rear bolts. Use our 13mm socket and tighten these back up. So we'll install our plastic rivets. You have to provide your own plastic rivet gun. Unfortunately, that does not come with the base plate. Okay, with that end secure, we'll do the other one. And that completes our installation of the Roadmaster EZ4 base plate kit with removable arms, part number RM-521446-4 on our 2016 Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk.
Click the link below to shop, learn more, or visit us at etrailer.com.